racing fans. Today we're here at Orlando World Speedway with our calibrator, James Martica, who has been working really hard on our calibration for the new 18 and newer Silverado gas trucks. That includes the 5.3 and the 6.2 with either an 8-speed or a 10-speed configuration. So James, we're here at the track. You've run it at the track. Tell us a little bit about what you've seen in terms of the power gain and in terms of what you went from on a stock pole to the tuned run.
Yep. So right out of the box from the factory, completely stock, the truck went 14.3 in the quarter mile. With our can tune on 93 Octane, it went 13.92.
Okay.
So a good improvement for just an out-of-the-box can tune, no other tweaks, all stock hardware.
Cool.
Emission system intact.
Wow, so I know back at the shop, you've had it on the dyno like crazy. You've been really working hard. Tell us and the consumers out in the world who are interested in a tune for their truck, what kind of power did you see, and what were some of the strategies you took in calibrating the engine to get a better feel for the consumer?
Yep. So from the factory, we gained about 22 foot-pounds at peak, which is down low. It's fairly flat between the 2200 to the 4000 range, so very good for the consumer for towing and other uses such for this truck. Up high, we got about 12 to 14 horsepower, depending on the day. Very consistent. So not something you'll see typically as a regular driver, but when you're at the track, you notice it based on the quarter mile times.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point you bring up. I mean, as we both know, late model trucks and cars from the factory have been tuned even stronger. And so 12 horsepower may not sound like much to consumers out there, but the big difference that we always see is in terms of daily drivability, right? So tell us a little bit about what you've done to the shifting strategy and daily driving strategy of this truck to really make it a joy to drive from where it was before.
So on this vehicle, we went from the engine side at first, reworked the pedal maps so that you get rid of the dead pedal feel you have from the factory, and then also smoothed out when you lift off so you don't get that initial clunk noise, you get a little more sail.
Yeah, it's
more
horrible.
Smooth driving feel for the consumer. On the trans side, we went in and firmed up shifts a little bit with pressures and times to try to give it a more quick engagement so that you notice and you get that abrupt shift.
Yeah, yeah. And I drove this truck for a while, and that was one of the things that I really noticed about it. And when I drove your tune, it really cleaned it up, made it very smooth and drivable. I really enjoyed it. You've been monitoring while we're here at the track. You've been doing data logging. What have you been using that product for to look at, and why?
We always try to monitor the IAT, the intake air temp, before a run because it is one of the highest contributors to an engine having spark knock, which is something that will rob the engine of power. We will literally remove spark advance when we knock. So we check that at first. On top of that, we'll have up the actual knock retard so that when we're doing a run, we'll know if we've had a knock event and if we need to get out of the pedal, or if it's just the minor knock, which is what you would like to see because that means you're tuned to the actual threshold of the engine.
Yeah, what kind of intake air temps are you seeing that you think are too hot?
So from the factory calibration, anything above 30C, they actually start pulling spark out, and we maintain that from testing because we actually noticed that it needs that, else it is very knock prevalent at high intake temps.
Yeah, and then in terms of the, so we talked about shift strategy and pedal strategy. How did you approach that? Again, we talked about that lurch. What else did you see? This 10-speed, I get a lot of questions from consumers about the 10-speed. What do you do for the 10-speed? How do you do it? What did you do?
A lot of the things I noticed on the 10-speed actually was the interaction between the transmission and the DFM, the active fuel management system. And there's some knobs that we're allowed to play with that'll let us not make the AFM system so active. And that was a lot of the tip in, tip out clunkiness that you would notice. It wasn't actually the engine torque or the transmission, it was the active fuel management system going out. So we kind of smoothed out the behavior and made it so it's more consistent.
Oh, it's fascinating.
I truly do believe the consumer is going to notice this on a day-to-day basis. The overall change in the drive pedal mapping is absolutely noticeable. Anybody who's driven it's been extremely happy. That power increase we talked about, it's amplified strictly by the pedal mapping. And we were able to make 2 separate pedal maps actually for our release. We'll have a sport mode for the consumer as well. That's even more amped up if you really want to have the tires spinning from every light.
Nice. And what other options for consumers are there going to be? You know, things like tire size or speed limits. You've been looking through all the factory files and figuring out what's what. What kind of configuration options will consumers have?
So a couple of good things that are going to be different on this application is the pedal modes I was speaking of are actually going to be able to latch or stay in that mode over a key cycle. So every time you start, they will not have to go back and turn back to the mode.
Oh, wow.
And this will also apply to the stop-start feature, which we know a lot of customers get in every single time and turn it off because of drivability as well on that one.
I mean, that was one of my number one pet peeves of this truck, and I think most consumers out there would agree. My family gets in the truck, we're driving, turns off at the light, and they go, what happened? And, oh guys, that's just this dumb thing, I gotta press the button. Consumers are really gonna love that. I'm glad we found it. Well, and so that's about it. We're really excited to launch this. If you are interested in tuning for the latest model Silverado gas trucks, come to our website. Stay good out there, people.